Meanwhile, at the same town hall where you had a woman who was convinced, and look, Obama was faced with a woman who had been raped, who was saying, I want a gun to protect my family. And Obama is in the position, and I don't know what he genuinely believes about this, but he said, look, that's your prerogative. Now, anybody who was not in such a highly charged political situation as the president would have said, well, here's my advice to you. Statistically speaking, it may be the case that that gun makes you feel safer, but statistically speaking, that gun endangers you and your family. That's simply just what the statistics will tell you. Now, you may go and get a level of training that is completely out of the norm. Maybe you'll go and get close combat training with the Navy SEALs for 2 weeks, specializing on handgun use and reaction time and response time. And in that instance, perhaps maybe it makes sense for you to have a weapon. But statistically speaking, if you're going to be like the average gun holder and have a gun in your home with 2 young kids, you are increasing the danger of something horrible happening to you. And he's not in a position to say that, and I can understand that. And Anderson Cooper, he's not in a position to say that because CNN feels it's really important to maintain this demographic and not be perceived as subscribing to things like science or truth. And to illustrate the point, and Obama could have said that to the sheriff too. I mean, he shot the sheriff down quite a bit, who was like, I think everybody should have a weapon. There's just, the statistics are, and there was just a report that came out by the FBI the other day. The statistics are that you are more likely, if there's a gun in the house, it's more likely that somebody in that household is going to be shot. The statistics of a good guy or a good girl with a gun stopping a bad guy with or a bad girl with a gun are minuscule. More people die in an attempt to stop the bad guy. But the president's not in the position to say that. He's even actually in the position where he has to justify why he cried in talking about Sandy Hook. And I read a story about, which apparently was just in this somebody's memoir. Someone who worked, I think, in the faith-based part of the administration. I'm not sure. Obama met literally 100 families, I think, at Sandy Hook in classrooms there. Sat down with each family, talk about their brother or their sister to the little kids or their child who was killed. So, I mean, he was right up front for that. You know, when he starts talking about it, it is very easy to imagine that he has specific individuals and specific moments with those surviving parents or siblings in mind as he recounts it. And, I watched it. It was incredibly moving to see him that moved. But it's amazing. Contemplate this. John Boehner would start crying. He cried like on the Golf Channel or something, right? Didn't he? Wasn't he like, or like some vacation channel? There was something like that. Like the guy cried. I don't know, like just thinking about yesterday's happy hour. And you didn't hear such outrage from the right.
He did. John Boehner cried during a Golf Channel interview.
All right, so, maybe he was looking back. I don't know. Maybe he was thinking back of that, one time I hit that par 2, and I just never thought I could do it. So here is Obama trying to address and explain something that you would really only have to explain to a sociopath. And even then, sociopath, they would actually understand why he cried. They just don't have the ability to do it themselves. And they would just see that as a cue of I should be crying.
Like, no, I get it. I understand.
No, it's a sociopath at that point goes
totally makes sense.
We got to cry now. Okay, I'm down with that. Here, listen.
I think a lot of people were surprised by that moment.
I was too, actually. I visited Newtown 2 days after what happened, so it was still very raw. It's the only time I've ever seen Secret Service cry on duty. And it wasn't just the parents. You had siblings, 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 3-year-olds, who in some cases didn't even understand that their brother or sister weren't going to be coming home. And I've said this before, it continues to haunt me. It was one of the worst days of my presidency. But look, I want to emphasize that there are a lot of tragedies that happen out there as a consequence of the victims of crime. There are police officers who are out there laying down their lives to protect us every single day. And tears are appropriate for them as well, and I visit with those families as well, victims of terrorism, soldiers coming home. There's a lot of heartache out there, and I don't suggest that this is the only kind of heartache we should be working on. I spent a lot of time and a lot of hours, in fact, a lot more hours than I spend on this, trying to prevent terrorist attacks.
How twisted of a society do we live in where the president has to justify why he got emotional in talking about the slaughter of first graders? I mean, honestly, how twisted of a society do we have to be? And I don't blame him. Where in his response as to, it was surprising to see you get that emotional, he has to say, look, I'm not saying that I didn't shed a tear for, police officers and military personnel. I mean, look, he would have been perfectly justified a year ago of saying, or the people who died in Benghazi. This is how twisted. This is how twisted the conservative movement, and frankly, even it wouldn't have been unreasonable for President Obama to assume Anderson Cooper is going to say, but what about military personnel? What about the people who died at Benghazi? We didn't see you cry for that. I mean, it really is. It's a sickness. It's twisted.
I was going to say, demented.
Demented,
twisted, just throwing out some more adjectives there.
And
also the other thing that it was either and we talked about the conspiracy theory that he had onion in his eye or whatever. And then there's also the whole this is, the bit I did was ISIS wasn't going to fully go after us, but now they really know. Without any reservation, the president is a total pussy.
Right. He's so weak.
So weak.
He's willing to let the deaths of children get to him.
He's emotionally moved by murdered first graders. How can a man like this ever lead the country?